So the current regions that are able to compete in the Rocket League esports scene, RLCS, are Europe, North America, the Oceanic region, and the South American region. But there's one region that's been turning a few heads that hasn't actually been able to compete in RLCS, and that's the Middle Eastern region. Yo, what's up? My name's RamS. I'm a professional Rocket League coach for SMPR esports in RLCS. Yeah, today we're going to be talking about the Middle Eastern region and maybe a little bit more specifically Sandrock Gaming and how their new look is looking and kind of talk you through the history of them if you haven't heard of them before. So Sandrock Gaming is a roster comprised of Khalid, Ahmad, and TRK. Most notably, Khalid is the greatest 1v1 player, arguably of all time. And has proven that on the biggest stage. Let's take a brief walk through history of Sandrock Gaming. They previously competed under the name #Warriors, and they competed in every Asian Rocket League tournament or event that they possibly could, and they pretty much dominated. They wiped the floor with every competition, and they were incredibly dominant in that region. And that's when it started to turn a few heads in the Rocket League esports scene who were trying to explore their regions. Some people who watched South America and the Oceanic regions were also drawn to the Asian scene, and Warriors were dominating. It was clear to see that his team was extremely talented. But what really put this team on the map was their main player, Khalid, who is like I said, the greatest 1v1 player arguably of the whole time, everything. Khalid had consistently competed within ranked since there was no RLCS to compete in for him, and he had climbed to the top of every single leaderboard multiple times. He would hold first, second, third, fourth, fifth in each playlist on different accounts just to prove how dominant he could be, and this is queuing against some of the EU powerhouses that were playing ranked as well. Stemming from this, he then competed on Johnny Boy's streams, who host regular 1v1 show matches and tournaments, and he would systematically take apart the best EU 1v1 players one by one until he was crowned the greatest. So this roster, who were originally playing with Senzo at the time instead of TRK, were then picked up by Sandrock Gaming, previously, like I said, under Warriors, and that's when people started to really take notice. A lot of fans speculated about their impact on the European Rocket League scene if they were able to compete. Some would argue that they were able to compete with some of the EU powerhouses if, Khalid was already dominating in the 1v1 scene and in ranked. Then this team has the potential of being just as good as some of the top RLCS teams at the time. Some even argued they were already a step above, but they just haven't been able to take in the chance to prove that. And they hadn't. They hadn't really had a chance. That was until the European Invitational Tournament. In March 2020, the TEI, the European Invitational, was announced, and Sandrock Gaming were one of the invited teams, as well as a bunch of the other RLCS teams. In this tournament, Sandrock Gaming made it all the way to the grand finals against Singularity, where they ended up losing, and Singularity, who is now Guild Esports, who finished 5th in RLCS X, so pretty solid competition there. And that excited these Middle Eastern fans and the Sandrock Gaming fans even more and even further. If they were able to compete against the likes of Guild Esports, like I said, Singularity at the time, then surely if they had to consistent practice and consistent tournaments against the top end of EU, they would really start climbing. With that excitement came the RLCSX announcement, and the Middle Eastern region did not get included. It's a huge shame just generally for the Rocket League esports scene when you have a team that's so good and strong who doesn't get included in the RLCSX regions. And so as a result, we had about 12 months there or thereabouts of no events that Sandrock Gaming could compete in against the likes of EU, not to mention that the top end of EU was with such a hectic schedule. Even if there were tournaments that both teams could compete in, it was unlikely that we would see both of them there. The tournament that we did get to see of Sandrock Gaming against those teams was the International World Open, which is essentially the Rocket League Olympics, and they competed and they made it all the way to the EMEA playoffs against some of the nation powerhouses of EU. Unfortunately, they were swept 3 times in their group to get eliminated and didn't win a single game, and I think at this point people started to have question marks over the roster. Sandrock Gaming know that they have the potential, and they decided to make a roster move, and they brought in TRK, who was previously on Falcons Esports, which was essentially the second best team in the Middle Eastern region, and TRK was definitely a standout player and had great experience in the 1v1 scene as well. So they picked up TRK, and what I want to do is I want to have a look and do a little bit of analysis of the before and after, and have a look at the potential that this roster has with TRK, and maybe give my own judgment on whether they would be able to compete at the top of RLCS. So one thing you can tend to see with Sandrock Gaming, with TRK, is they spread out really well and they're able to like maintain pressure consistently. Like you see here, this is TRK going for 50-50. He stays wide, he's able to grab the boost. And like they rotate and position around each other really well and create a lot of pressure. You can see this is against Rick's GG. That there's a lot of pressure coming in. TRK is able to just get some 50s, some favorable touches. He's able to be quite aggressive here. You can see he's pushing up, taking the boost instead of rotating back because he trusts in the other two. And this is a really good sign of like an early roster. Usually what you'd find with a brand new roster is a team is more likely to be defensive because they're not 100% got that rotational trust yet. But quite clear here, like TRK is able to do it. And, you know, because he was able to push out, he was able to get a touch there, and then Ahmed gets a nice little touch mid as well here, and they just have that understanding between. Ahmed goes for the demo and TRK gets a free goal from it. So it's a really promising sign there, just seeing how aggressive TRK is positioning whilst playing with Sandrock, which is a really positive thing. Now obviously, if you've got the positional stuff down, like I just mentioned, and you're able to generate pressure just generally that way, you can't also discount the fact that all three of these players are really mechanically talented. I mean, everyone is able to score pretty much any moment, and as I'm saying that, Okalid scoring a double touch. Like, it's when you have a team composition that has positionally aware players that are able to play around each other in space well, as well as create some passing players, and each player is pretty much able to score out of nothing, you have a recipe for a really, really strong team. And I think you can see that with the potential here. But Ahmad, TRK, and Okalid are all very, very individually talented. They're quite smart in their decision making in terms of positioning. You can see here, like, they're just stalling. Okalid takes a touch. TRK is just going to apply pressure so that Mike doesn't have a free touch. You know, we have some good defense coming out, and that's something positive we can see coming in from Sandrock Gaming. Another thing that you generally get with TRK now added to the roster of Sandrock is they have a lot of physicality, and because of that, they're able to create a lot of pressure, which is quite difficult to defend with. So, like, you can see here, you know, infield passing play, smart decision from TRK not to like push. Ocelon's pushing for a demo here on him, but like it's great recognition. So here, just trying to create some pressure, get some solid 50s, gets a demo here. He's able to set up a 50, and look at this pressure. Like, okay, there throws it backboard. So you got two people in net. You take a shot here. They have to pre-jump save it. You have it again, and then yeah, they get a goal from it. Like, you can just see all the pieces are starting to come together for this team now with TRK in the roster. So that's just like a small insight in terms of the gameplay. Like I said, we haven't seen crazy amounts of gameplay to look at right now, so there's only a small sample size to look at. But from what it seems like, they do look really promising with TRK, and he does add a new element to the roster. It makes them a lot more dynamic, a lot more exciting, excuse me. So what you can say is that by adding TRK, you can definitely see this roster becoming a lot more dynamic, and even though we have a small sample size and a small amount of games to actually look at, you can definitely see the potential here, and if they keep working at it, which I assume they will, they wouldn't just make a roster move for no reason, then we really could see them becoming a strong force like they were considered back in the TI, and that they kind of lost over the course of last season. The only thing we can hope is that Middle East gets added to RLCS next season, or they get added into the European region as an EMEA type region like they did in the Intel World Open. And in terms of my own opinion about where Sandrock Gaming would place if they were just thrown into EU right now, I think it's a similar situation you can think of with what True Neutral are doing in North America, who just moved from South America to North America. From the get-go, I reckon Sandrock Gaming would probably be around a top 8 team. There or thereabouts. Maybe they'll be a little bit short at the beginning because they wouldn't have the top tier experience. We don't know how they would react in an RLCSX tournament format, but generally speaking, they should individually be good enough to compete at that sort of level. And I think as you see, as they get more time, more experience, and they get to scrim against the top teams, play against the top teams consistently, maybe you'll see them grow into like very, very, very strong team. I think it's really early to say, and I wouldn't want to say that they'd be able to compete at the top for world spots just yet, even though, you know, top 8, top 6 isn't too far away. The gulf between those teams and the teams below it sometimes is. But it's definitely an interesting one. It's an exciting one for me, and I really do hope that Psyonix are taking the steps to add the Middle East as a region, or they're potentially adding it to the European region as well. Because it'd be really exciting to see these guys play, because at the moment it feels like a bunch of talent is being wasted otherwise. That's my Sandrock Gaming analysis. Let me know what you guys think about them. Let me know if you think Middle East getting added to RLCS would be like a really good move. I'm sure it's a pretty unanimous vote there, but yeah, let me know if there's any other teams you want me to look at, or players, that sort of thing, and peace. So keep my mouth shut and not listen, my friend.